Hi, I'm Louise, and today I'm going to be ranking the 2025 Best Picture nominees. This has been a wild award season. I remember last year the biggest drama there was that Messi, the dog from Anatomy of a Fall, got uninvited from the Oscars because he was too popular, but then re-invited and was part of a quick cutaway in the show, which was really fun. I kind of wish it was like that this year, but alas, it is not. I think this might be my first time watching all of the Best Picture nominees before the Oscars. Usually I'll get to them eventually, but I'm kind of happy with myself for finally doing it this year. And I picked an interesting year to do this in because most of the movies are pretty good, but there's one that will not be a surprise to anyone that is not as good as the other ones. This ranking will be a bit of a mix between how much I like the movie and then also how fun I think it would be if the movie won Best Picture. And I'll be honest, the bottom slot was decidedly easier than all of the others, and you won't be at all surprised that Emilia Pérez is my number 10. It's probably no surprise to anyone who's seen it or read about it. Emilia Pérez is a musical crime drama film that is set in Mexico, and it is written and directed by a Frenchman named Jacques Audiard. It's about basically the story is there's a cartel leader who wants to go into hiding and transitions to disappear, basically. It has been nominated for 13 Oscars, which is wild. There's not a lot of movies that have been able to do that. And that basically means that the voting body was like, yes, we think this is a great movie. And until very recently, this was one of the front runners to win Best Picture, which is crazy that ever happened. And I don't have a lot to say about this movie that hasn't already been said. It's not very often that your star says something so bad that they have to pay their own way to go to the Oscars. I feel for Netflix right now because they want to win Best Picture so bad. I really think they think it will validate the streaming method once they win an Oscar, but this year is not their year. And as for the movie itself, it's not good. Even outside all the drama, the movie itself is not great. It feels like they're just trying to talk about any topic that seems somewhat related to what's going on, and they don't really go into any of them really well at all. There's all this whisper singing going on too, which makes it weird that it's a musical. Like, if you're gonna make it a musical, make it a musical. The music seems like kind of a cheat to get the characters to say what they're thinking instead of thinking of a creative way to try and get them to communicate something. Like, I just watched Heat for the first time, and that movie is a lot of talking, but it's really well done. So really nothing in this movie worked for me. The songs were not great. The acting was whatever. Apparently the Spanish is bad. I don't speak Spanish, so I don't know. But even I could tell that Selena Gomez's Spanish was she sounded like my classmates in my Spanish class to me. And I'm not a Spanish speaker, so I'm not really wanting to talk about that. But I just wanted to mention it because I think it's kind of funny. Yeah, really nothing in this movie worked for me at all. I would rather it didn't win anything, but we will see. My number 9 on this list is a complete unknown, and it's not because this movie is not good. I think it's just not for me. I didn't know anything about Bob Dylan before going into this movie, and I don't really think I learned very much because I could not understand anything Timothy Chalamet was saying. So I suppose you could say Bob Dylan is still a complete unknown to me. A Complete Unknown is a biopic about Bob Dylan, mostly about the period where he kind of becomes famous and then goes electric, which I guess was a really big deal at the time. I kind of want to read more about it because I still was kind of having a hard time following what was going on because I couldn't understand what people were saying. Mostly, I could understand what everyone around Timothy Chalamet was saying, but not him. And I'm sure his performance is accurate, but it just was hard to follow what he was feeling and thinking because I couldn't understand anything he was saying. And maybe if I had seen it with subtitles, I would have had a better time. I think his performance in Dune last year, honestly, was the better of the two. And, he's not nominated for that one, obviously, but I just don't think he was, and I don't think he was bad in this. It just was hard to follow. I think my favorite performance in the film was Edward Norton. He was really great. He has such a gentle presence in this movie, and I feel like the role of the manager guy or the inspiration guy generally gets more aggressive as the movie goes on. They're like, "Oh, you're such a great talent," and then they become more mean as the movie goes on, but he like stays kind to Bob Dylan the whole time, and I love that. And maybe he's not necessarily the manager, but he did, according to the film, kind of found him and brought him onto the scene and was kind of like a mentor figure. And I loved him in this. He was really great. I did really like the music, which was great because that was most of the movie. There's a lot of musical performances and everybody does a really great job. But I thought the movie was just fine. Mostly because I couldn't understand what was going on. Number 8 on my ranking is Wicked. And this is a proper musical for sure. And I will admit, initially, before I went to go see this, I was a bit apprehensive because I was a bit unsure about why they were splitting it into 2 parts. I thought that was a little strange, and some of the casting choices, I was like, that's interesting. I wasn't ever worried about Cynthia. I don't know that much about Ariana Grande, to be honest, so I wasn't sure how she would do. She was fantastic. I am a bit curious how they're going to handle part 2 this year once they get to that, because I think part 2 has less iconic songs and is a little bit more serious, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I do think whoever did the marketing, who was in charge of the marketing for this movie, needs an award, because holy moly, they were like, we saw what Barbie did, let's do that, guys. And I think it worked really well. All the praise for Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande feels very justified to me. They both were incredible in their roles in this film. And like, it's not just like they're good at acting, which is good, but they also have to sing, they have to dance, and have to act while they sing and dance, which is really, really difficult. They make it look really effortless, and I know it's not. And so, good for them, basically, is what I want to say. And this was my first time seeing Jonathan Bailey in anything. I haven't watched Bridgerton. I haven't seen any of the movies he's in. And he was great. I need to see more of him, I think. I'm excited that he's in the new Jurassic Park movie. The music, of course, is incredible. And, you know, as it has been. And everybody did a great job. The choreography was really fun. I do wish they hadn't dragged out Defying Gravity as much as they did. I felt like it kept, like, stopping the momentum of that song. Because that song is incredible. And it really is a great ending to the film. But they just, like, kept stopping, which was really frustrating. And so I left the theater kind of feeling like annoyed, which is not, I think, what they were going for. But I was just like, just finish the song. It's so good. Once you get to the end, it's amazing. And so I feel like all the stopping kind of undercut that big moment for me. And maybe if I rewatched it, I would feel differently. But I definitely was having a better time before that. I will say, I think my favorite thing in the whole movie were the costumes and the makeup and just like the production design. The movie looks incredible, and it was worth seeing in theater just for that. I would love to see any of these people get awarded anything, and they really did an incredible job. Big fan of the production design in this movie. Number 7 on my ranking is Nickel Boys. And I really wish more people were talking about this movie. I have seen more people talk about it, like, in the last couple days, but I really thought this was great. They took a risk, and it didn't always pay off, but I love that they did that, and the parts that work really work. Nickel Boys is a historical drama film based on the book The Nickel Boys, and it won a Pulitzer Prize when it came out. The story is about 2 young men who go to an abusive reform school in the 1960s and is based on, you know, people's real experiences. And this was all shot in first person, which I thought was an interesting choice for this film. The only other movie I've seen that has done this is Hardcore Henry, which is a very different movie and very action focused. And by the end, I was feeling a bit motion sick, so I had to close my eyes, and my husband was just like describing to me what was happening. Anyway, Nickel Boys is definitely not that. The beginning especially really captured for me what it's like being a kid, just seeing different things and not really like having a commentary or anything on what's happening, but just observing the world around you. It felt a lot like Tree of Life to me a little bit, where you're just kind of seeing things and not everything's in focus. You know, I don't know. I just feel like it really captures childhood to me, and I loved that initial probably like 10-15 minutes of the film. And then once it gets to like the plot parts and like people are talking more directly to the character, that was a bit weird, because there's a lot of like people looking directly at you, and that kind of was strange to me. And it took me a while to acclimate to the first person thing, and sometimes it just didn't really work for me. But by the end of the film, I was like, okay, I can see why they did this. And there's a couple moments at the very end of the film that are super powerful because it is filmed in this way. So I love that these creative people took this chance and tried something new. And maybe it didn't work all the time, but when it worked, it really, really worked. And even just outside of the first person thing, so many of the images are just gorgeous and really set up really well. There's a lot of one takes, obviously, because, it's hard to cut between stuff when you're in first person, that really just like have stuck with me. And then it makes the really hard moments even more difficult because you're seeing it all in first person. And I think this movie, of all the Best Picture nominees, had me crying the hardest. At the end, like, I had to sit through all of the credits before I was able to, calm down a little bit, because it's just so heartbreaking, but so well done, especially at the end there. I will admit, I have never learned about this at school. Shocking. So this was, before I was researching for this film, I just didn't know that this was the thing. It doesn't surprise me that this happened, but I just had never learned about it. And so this was a really kind of visceral way to learn about this, but I think it's worth watching, especially if you've grown up in America and want to learn more about this period of history. I think it was a really important film, and I wish it was nominated for more than just Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay. I think a cinematography nomination would have really made sense here, and I'm kind of shocked that it wasn't nominated for that, because it's really unique and it looks great. Storytelling wise, it doesn't always work, but I'm always happy to see people trying new stuff. Number 6 on my ranking is Conclave. I gotta say, one of the funnest things out of this Oscar season is seeing all the Conclave memes. That's been really fun. So I appreciate you guys. You're very... I haven't made any, but just seeing them all has been very fun for me. Wikipedia calls Conclave a political thriller, which I guess makes sense. Basically, the movie is about a conclave trying to vote about who is going to be the next pope, and kind of what kind of things are we willing to let slide in these people, because everyone has a dark past or has done something bad. I initially saw this in theaters the week before the election, which was really interesting. And then I've rewatched it since then. I think this was the only nominee of these that I've seen more than one time. It's very easy to recommend to people. It's one of the few Best Picture nominees to be rated PG. I think the last time this happened was probably Little Women or something. So it was fun to rewatch it, because a lot of the dialogue in the beginning, with the main guys who end up, being talked about a lot, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense why he says that here. Or why he would react to this way. So I think it's very, very rewatchable. Ralph Fiennes is, of course, incredible. I need to watch more of his work, because every time I see him in something, he's doing something incredible every time. His performance is definitely more subtle here than in other stuff he's been in, but he's a really great point of view character for the audience. And is a great manager, I think, as someone who's been in a management role, even if he doesn't love it. I loved Isabella Rossellini. She's not on screen for very long, but she does leave quite a presence, and she delivers also a really subtle performance that really kicks into gear for one monologue, and then she kind of goes away. But it's a really important monologue. My favorite scene in the whole thing is that cafeteria scene near the end where, everything is coming out, and then at the end, Tedesco just hits his vape, and it holds on him for a second, and oh my gosh, it's so funny every time. Because all this stuff has just happened, and he's just sitting there It's so good. I also want to see Carlos Diaz. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but holy moly, he was so good in this. That last conversation between him and Ralph Fiennes, I'm he's really kind of acting circles around Ralph Fiennes right here, and just delivering this great performance with not that much time. And I Hope he ends up in more stuff after this because he really is incredible. All in all, this is a really fun watch. It's very much my type of movie. I love movies with lots of talking and lots of drama. So this is definitely more of a me movie than some of the other nominees. It's well acted. It's well shot. It looks really good. All the costuming looks great. And there's just so much of like, it could have just been talking the whole time. But there's these great moments where it's kind of showing the scale of what's happening outside of these kind of one-on-one conversations for the most part. And I think it does a great job of giving you a sense of scale of what's happening and how important this is to people. My number 5 is Anora. And I had a lot of fun with this. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I heard great things and it was really fun. Anora is a drama comedy about a sex worker who marries a Russian oligarch's son and is about the shenanigans that happens after his family finds out. I saw this the week after it had won a bunch of awards at the Producers Guild Awards, the Directors Guild Awards, and like the Critics' Choice. And before that, we really had no front runner, which is kind of crazy. This award season has just been all over the place. So I'm really curious to see who's going to win what. And when I was watching it, I was like, not that I think this is a bad movie, but I was just kind of surprised that it was doing so well. I'm like, why? Maybe the voting bodies are just getting younger. And, you know, I just think like 10 years ago, this movie wouldn't even have been nominated, let alone in the best, like winning Best Picture conversation, which is really fun. This movie did not need to be as funny as it is. And I'm so glad that it is, especially that home invasion scene. Like I still have like burned into my brain that one guy who gets punched in the face and he finds frozen pasta to like hold on his head. I just love that he like couldn't find ice. I think that's so funny. Anyway, there's so many movies that have like a home invasion scene. I feel like at some point, like even just Fargo, which I was just talking about. But this one was just like so goofy and funny and really does a great job of switching the tone of the movie, because initially it's kind of like a Cinderella fairy tale for the first bit, and then this home invasion happens and it totally switches and it becomes both more serious and more silly because the whole sequence of them trying to find the Russian oligarch's son is so funny to me. A lot of people are talking about Mikey Madison's performance here, and as they should. She's doing incredible work. She says all these incredible funny lines with such ferocity and just like self-assuredness that I think is really unique in a female protagonist. I feel like so many women in movies are like coming into their own and learning how to be independent, but she's like that from the get-go. She's like, I'm a businesswoman. I am self-assured. I know what I'm doing. And I love that. And I love that this character exists and that we get to see her in this kind of crazy situation. And it's really funny for the most part, you know, stuff that's going on. I also love Yura Borisov. He does a great job. I think it's really fun that he got nominated, which is cool. He doesn't really say a lot, but he also says a lot with his face, and when he shows up he kind of becomes the point of view character for the audience, which I think is really interesting. And he just seems amused and baffled, just as like we are as we're watching what's going on. I won't say a lot about the ending because I don't really want to spoil anything for people who haven't seen this, but it is just such a heartbreaking ending, and like we can all kind of see it coming, but it's still just like you kind of hope that that's not going to be the ending. And the credits rolling with the windshield wiper sound against the snow. Oh my gosh. And it's such a contrast to the beginning of the movie that starts off with this like happy song, and then the end is just so much more quiet, and it really kind of captures the journey that the characters are going on, and I love that. Number 4 in my ranking is Dune Part 2. I really think if Dune Part 2 had come out later in the year, it would have done better in awards, and that's just kind of how it goes. I'm honestly kind of surprised it's in the Best Picture category because it just seems like people haven't really been talking about it lately, but I'm glad it's here because I think it's really, really great. Dune Part 2 picks up where Part 1 leaves off. Paul's in hiding with the Fremen, and he has to figure out how to integrate with the people. They become accepted, and we get to see him rise to power and what effect that has on his people as well as, you know, the galaxy at large. I think my favorite performance in this is Zendaya. She was absolutely incredible. And the choice to move the point of view from Paul to Chani at the end of the film was brilliant. I love that they did that, and it really makes it seem like Chani is more of an independent character rather than just kind of like an appendage to Paul. And Zendaya really plays that really, really well. Timothy is also really great. Watching him go from basically like a refugee to becoming the leader of a holy war and having it be somewhat believable over the course of like 2.5 hours is really great. Yeah, like I said earlier, I think this is Timothy Chalamet's better performance of the year, but maybe that's just because I could understand what he was saying in this movie. Austin Butler is also a big standout. I was curious how they interpret Fade Ralph's character, but I never would have thought to make him this kind of crazy, ready to spring at any moment character. Denny and Austin just like, they were on the same wavelength and had it figured out, and I love that he is this way. I just think he's played so well. And he's the baldest of bald men you've ever seen, which is really funny. On a technical level, this movie is so incredible. I love that Greg Fraser got a cinematography nom. He's an incredible cinematographer, and I just hope he gets more recognition because he's really doing incredible work. And Denny not getting a Best Director nom is crazy to me. I'm hopeful that Dune Messiah turns out really good and we kind of get like a Return of the King thing where they're like, these awards are technically for the whole series, but since it's the last one, we'll give these all to you. So hopefully Dune Messiah gets a later release, is received really well, and then they can, you know, go back and give them all these awards. But we'll see. I've read Dune Messiah, and I am not sure how they're going to make that into a movie. Like, Dune already kind of felt unadaptable, but Dune Messiah feels even less adaptable to me. So we will see together. We will see together what that's like. Number 3 on my ranking is I'm Still Here. This film totally caught me by surprise. I had heard that Fernanda Torres gave a great performance, and she does. She really does. But the whole thing is just so incredible. I'm Still Here is an adaptation of the book I'm Still Here, written by Marcelo Rubens Pavia, the son that's in the movie of the family. He wrote this autobiography, I guess. It would be an autobiography. It depicts a family, and it's a true story, dealing with the disappearance of their dad and husband during the military dictatorship in Brazil during the 1970s, but it does, you know, jump into the future after the dictatorship is over. And the actresses who play Eunice Paiva are mother and daughter, which I didn't know until after the movie was over. I just thought that the hair and makeup people did a really great job of making her look older, but I just think that's fun that they were both in this movie together. This was really, 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 really good, but so hard to watch. Another like really sad movie. Fernanda Torres just gives this an incredible performance, and I would not be mad at all if she won Best Actress. Not one bit. She does so good. It's such a subtle performance too, but you can still see the like heartbreak and sadness she's trying to struggle through while not passing that on to her kids and keeping things going. And the way it starts is so good, and but like so mean almost, because everyone's so happy. The dad and the kids all get along great. They're hanging out on the beach and just having the best time. And then once he disappears, it just shifts. And it's so heartbreaking to watch. And the kids. I don't think people are talking enough about how incredible the kids are in this movie. They do such a good job of like feeling natural with each other. They talk to each other like kids. They interact with each other like kids. And they really are just really incredible and make this way more believable. It really feels like we're just kind of viewing this as it's happening rather than them performing it for us. Oh, it's just absolutely excellent. Again, another movie I highly recommend, but it is a lot. Number 2 on my ranking is The Brutalist. The Brutalist is just such a big movie. It's kind of hard to know where to start, but it is easily one of the best looking films in 2024. And I had a great time seeing it. I love that it had an intermission. I wish more longer movies would do that because it doesn't feel like as much of an undertaking because you get that 15-minute break where you can go to the bathroom, you can get a snack, and I did, and it was great. The Brutalist is a period drama film that takes place right after World War II. Our main character is Laszlo Toth, who is separated from his wife, and he moves to America, and eventually his wife comes with him to America, and it's basically him trying to create a life in America post-World War II. From the instant the movie starts, you can tell that you're watching something that's not going to be like your typical movie, just like the filmic language, and also it being shot on VistaVision really changes the way the movie looks. The last feature film to be entirely shot on VistaVision was a movie called One-Eyed Jacks in 1961, so it really feels really unique, and most of the VistaVision films that came out were during the 50s, which is around when this movie's taking place, which I think was an interesting choice. And there are so many incredible, like, subtle one takes that you're like, wait, have I seen a cut? Like, I was just kind of, paying attention to the story, and then I'm like, wait, this hasn't cut in, like, 3 minutes. And they're shooting this on film, too, which is really difficult. And, with digital, you have basically unlimited space or whatever, but once you add film into that mix, it's way harder to do one takes and make them work because you only have so many times to try it. And there's one big one take, again, a major story spoiler, so I won't get too much into it, but holy crap. I read about on Letterboxd, there's a really interesting article about how they filmed that because they had to like insert the film like in a way that wasn't natural for the camera, and so that was tricky. And then they have to hit all their marks, and it's a high emotional scene, so all the actors are having to hit their marks while doing all these high intensity emotions, and this goes on for like 5 minutes or so. I don't know exactly how long, but oh my gosh. And it really just like the movie builds and builds and builds to that moment, and it really pays off. It really pays off. And all of the acting here is also incredible. Adrian Brody does an incredible job. I have not seen him in The Pianist, so what I know him from is Wes Anderson films. So this was very different, and he does a great job. I think the performance of everyone in the film that stuck the most with me was Guy Pearce's. He plays this like wealthy guy that's funding Laszlo's work, and it's a lot about their relationship, and he really just is so interesting to watch because you're kind of seeing this guy and you never really know what he's gonna say. He does all this stuff where you're just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess that's what we're doing now. And he's just super interesting, and he's like fascinated by Laszlo, which is super interesting. Anyway, their relationship is just fascinating and worth watching for on its own. There are so many incredible images that will just be seared into my brain for a long time. And I saw this, I think, the day after Trump was inaugurated, so it was a great time to watch this movie because it's very like cynical about the American dream. So there's that too. If you're looking for something to watch, it's not going to make you like feel any better, but it's really good. And my number 1 is The Substance. It feels like kind of a funny number 1, but I feel like this movie's like basically perfect. So that's why this is here. And part of it is too, I watched this and I was like, I can't believe I've never thought of pairing body horror and body dysmorphia together that just feels so obvious now that the substance exists. And it does it so, so well. So well. If we ever see anything like this in the future, it will all be compared to this movie. And it just feels so natural that I'm like surprised that I haven't seen anything like this before. And maybe it does exist, but this was just done so well. And it's crazy to me that it is nominated for Best Picture. I think that's great. There's not a lot of horror movies that get nominated for Best Picture. I don't think it's going to win, but I think it's great that it's here. The film is about a Academy Award winning actress who's getting older, is on this aerobic show, and she gets called in on her 50th birthday and they fire her basically because she's too old. And she gets introduced to the substance, which allows her to generate a younger version of herself. And they kind of switch places every 7 days. And then it's about like what happens when you don't do that. And it kind of just escalates and escalates. It really feels like a simple premise, but it's just done so perfectly that I just keep thinking about it. And it was so fun to see in a full theater. I probably saw it a month after it came out, and it was full. Totally full, because the word of mouth was so good on this movie, and it really, made it such a big thing. Demi Moore winning Best Actress for this role would make me so happy. She does so, so good. And she won the Golden Globe, so it is possible, but we'll see. She does so much with so little dialogue. Like, the script is incredible, but it's not incredible for the like spoken dialogue, because there's really not that much of it. It's a lot more of like observing her in this lonely apartment and kind of how she's dealing with getting older and being older. So much of it is done with her face, and just that scene alone where she's getting ready for the date in front of the mirror and she looks at herself and she's just rubbing the makeup off and, almost like to the point where she's just grabbing at her skin. That just, I've felt that before. It's not, a lot of what movies do, they're about experiencing something that you don't know, but they're also so validating when there's something you see that you've experienced before, and it's just not something I've ever seen depicted in that way. Obviously, this movie had a big impact on me, and it's crazy because this is a body horror film. This is not something I normally would have gone to go see, but I heard so many great things about it, and it really just had this huge impact on me. And yeah, that's right, it's number one on my list, obviously. I also really like the production design. It's really a fun to look at horror film, and I don't feel like a lot of horror films do that. A lot of them are more grimy and dark, but this is not that way at all. A lot of it feels more like a stage production, and there's just these bright colors, and anyway, it really all works together so, so well. The visual style is so bold and assertive and just very like, I know who I am and this is what I'm going to say, which I love. I love that. But yeah, if you can't tell, I really love this movie. That's my Oscars ranking. For the most part, I really would be happy with any of these films winning. I really feel like they're good, except for Emilia Pérez, obviously. But I really enjoyed a lot of these, and I'm glad that they were nominated, because some of them I wouldn't have seen otherwise. I would love to know what your favorite films were from this year, whether they were nominated or not. Like, Challengers not getting nominated for anything is crazy. And I would love to hear what you all think. So, thank you so much for watching. Got a cinematography